Welcome to the HIT podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we are dropping into your feed with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, well-curated conversations going on in the space. This is part 2 of my conversation with kidnap-ransom hostage negotiator Scott Walker. If you missed part 1, go back and check it out. Fascinating conversation. We're going to pick up right where we left off with Scott. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And without any further ado, let's get right back where we left off. You know, some of this reminds me of, ironically, we're finally getting to why, but start with why, right? Because I think that there is, when you just said they might know it subconsciously, it kind of reminded me that we all almost have at least 2 brains going on at the same time, where one's got my intellectual thoughts, but there is something deeper. And that's maybe been thematic throughout a lot of this conversation, which is the person's ego, or they don't want to see themselves kind of lowered status wise. And there's something going on kind of beneath it in their lizard brain or deep down in their bones. And this is just such a great reminder that, as you said, listening to a degree that you might not normally do if you're just flying around because today's world is zip, 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 is such a crucial skill.
It is. And I'm not saying you have to do this on the conversation where it's, what should we have for dinner, dear? I'm not talking about that. It's actually, it can work, but it actually works particularly well when it's our intimate partners, for example, our family, because we think we know them so well. Yet we'll just miss the subtle shift in mood, in approach, in energy even. And unless you're sharp, unless you're on it, unless you are taking that slight step back and realizing negotiation is not about you. You know, that cliche, first seek to understand before being understood. If we can just do that, actually, we're like sieves. We just leak all the time. We're leaking our true intent. We're leaking through our body language, through our tone of voice, through our energy, through our mannerisms. But the problem is, when we come up against people, particularly in the important high stakes conversations, we're so tunnel focused, tunnel vision on what is it that I need to get from this? What's in it for me, as you said there? But if we can just for a few seconds, take a slight step back and go, how can I best support this person right now? What is this potential client? What's really going on for them? Are they under pressure by their own line manager to come up with a deal? For example, you know, rather than, they're not really playing hardball. That's not who they are as a person. But actually, if you can kind of demonstrate a bit of empathy there, hey, you know what? It seems like you're under pressure to get this deal over the line, which is why you're looking for such a big reduction in our fees. You know, it's just, you know, you'll get what you want. But first, you need to make the other person feel seen, heard, and understood. And that's not some kind of soft and fluffy new age stuff. It actually, if I can do it with kidnappers in life or death scenarios, we can do it with a business partner or a client for sure.
Well, it's interesting because as you say that, it is me. It's the self getting in the self's way, because you're thinking to you're like, I've got my goal and I've got my end game. And doing what you're expressing almost feels A, exhausting, but B, like it's like unfair. It's like, well, why should I have to listen so hard? Why am I doing all the heavy lifting? But ironically, it's the selfless listening empathy that allows your selfish goals of trying to get to the bloody end game to come through.
100%. And intent matters. People say, Scott, aren't you just being a bit Machiavellian? You know, you're just trying to con people. It's like, well, I'm actually trying to help this person build a bridge from their problem, their pain point, to a solution that is absolutely going to transform their life, their business, their family, whatever it is. And so surely the way to get there is to enable them, to help them get out of their own way. And if I can do that by approaching it a slightly different way, there's nothing Machiavellian about that at all. In fact, if anything, it's the ultimate act of service, where I'm seeking first how I can be of service to you. Once you feel that and can see that in action because I'm demonstrating it, you're more likely to go, or I'm more likely to then have earned that trust to then go, hey, is it okay if I just share with you where I'm at with this? And this particularly works brilliantly well when you disagree with the other person. If you're in a disagreement, if you're struggling to agree terms on a deal, if you've got a bit of, family dynamics, there's a bit of conflict there, this approach works so well because it just diffuses the situation. People don't feel like they need to fight for their identity and be consistent with that and how they see themselves in the world. And then ultimately, you've got an open goal almost of, hey, you can then take your, to butcher the metaphor, take your penalty shot or whatever it is to get what you want.
Well, speaking of imperfect metaphors, this might be one also, but if you were a multilinguistic person, and let's say you spoke English and Spanish, for example, fluently, and the person you were talking to spoke broken English but was very fluent in Spanish, getting back to the Machiavellian piece, why wouldn't you communicate to this person in the language that they're going to understand best, right?
Yeah. And remember, the ultimate target, the outcome, whatever you want to measure it by, in any negotiation or important conversation, is cooperation or collaboration. Ultimately, why are you bothering? And that could be your kids agreeing to go to bed on time, the potential client to sign for the deal, or for the kidnappers to release the hostages. Same principles apply. Cooperation and collaboration. If you can't get either one of those or both, why are you even having the conversation in the first place?
So we're getting at a little bit of, as you mentioned, kind of framing the idea that utilizing effective levers where they exist is really just, helping us kind of get to the point. Can I ask you, like, literally, tactically, you mentioned earlier keeping your cool and observe but not absorb. What are a couple of the kind of tricks of the trade or tools that you use that you try to keep in mind when you're trying to be an effective disagreeer or communicator, or negotiator, or fill in the blank?
Yeah. Okay. First thing to do is keep you cool. We've covered that. And the way you do that is by a little technique I practiced and learned the hard way just before we jumped on the phone call with kidnappers or walking into a family of a hostage, is just to bring my attention to the soles of my feet flat on the floor. People go, really, is that it? But if you're doing it, if you're stressed or the stakes are high, just stand there or sit there, put your feet flat on the floor, bring your attention to the soles of the feet pressing down. And do that for about 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. Take a couple of deep breaths as you're doing it. Exhale long on the exhale. That makes you become more present. It interrupts any kind of negative loop you've got going on inside your head. It allows you a couple of seconds just to take a step back. Once you've done that, you can then move on to stage 2, which is a preparation stage. And it's what I call the bunch of fives. Palm of your hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And before every call with a kidnapper or in a business deal, we would think, okay, what are the top 5 objections, threats, demands, questions, issues, challenges, whatever's relevant for you, that the other side could levy against you if they wanted to disrupt or get in the way of this deal happening? And then once you know what they are, when it comes to actually having the conversation, you, if need be, bring them out first before the other side do. And then people go, oh, no, Scott, but you're planting seeds in their head, aren't you? It's like, they're already there. Even if it's subconsciously, they will be thinking it or suspecting it. And if they don't get in the way at the beginning, they'll get in the way at the end, or it won't result in future business. So once you're grounded and centered, you've done your preparation, your bunch of fives, then we want to start listening at what I call level 5. Okay, levels 1 to 3, you're focusing on yourself, you're just listening for the gist, maybe waiting to rebut what they're saying. I'm right, you're wrong. Let me wait till you're finished, then I'm going to, no, in fact, I won't even let you finish. I'm going to speak over you, try and shut you down. Whereas when we get to levels 4 and 5, we're listening for emotion and point of view. We're emotional creatures, right? And so we want to be listening to, okay, Scott's saying this, but why is he saying it? It's not so much the words, but why? What's driving it? What's his reason for doing this? What's the emotion that's driving it? And then the 5th one really is point of view. What are their beliefs, values, rules? How do they make decisions? But if you're listening at that level, and don't get me wrong, it's hard work doing that consistently, they will give you their pain points, their problems, their challenges, their issues, and indeed a solution or way out. And all you've got to do is go, actually, how about this as a solution? Your product or service or whatever it is. Okay. So once we've done that, so we've done our prep, we've demonstrated our understanding, or we listened rather, we then move on to the empathy loop. Based on what we've just gathered, it's like, hey, Scott, is it okay if I just share with you where I think you're at right now? Seems that you're a little frustrated with us, or with our reluctance to sign the contract by the deadline that you gave. And you feel as if we're not committed to this project. And then you stay quiet. You don't verbally vomit everywhere. You don't stack the questions. Then they'll come back with the answer. And then all you're doing is you're just constantly checking in. Am I on the right lines here? Are we in agreement? And by the time you get to that point, then you're building the rapport, you're establishing trust, because trust is the golden thread that runs through all of this. And then by that point, you've kind of earned the right to then put your own side across. And those steps will help you to have difficult conversations and influence others, particularly if you don't have that direct authority over them as well.
The power of silence is so fascinating, where you said, hey, you talk a little bit and then you stop talking. You do not need to fill the air. Let that person talk back. And when you're talking about kind of listening at levels 4 and 5, earlier you mentioned how people are kind of leaky. And I was thinking in my head, you know how often people think, God, I wish I was just a mind reader, because then I could negotiate better, I could sell better, I could do whatever better if I could just read their mind. And your sort of point is, you don't really need to be a mind reader. People exude what's secretly going on in their head through, as you mentioned, body language and tone and all these sorts of things. If you could just listen at that deeper level, and sometimes let the silence even amplify that from them. Because if you say something and you stop talking, and then maybe they're almost a little like jarred by it or uncomfortable, then they'll really sort of betray their inner thoughts a little bit more by, trying to fill that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. Be comfortable. We're not talking about 5 minutes of silence, just an extra couple of seconds. Yeah. Once you've asked your question, made your point, or when they've made their point, don't be in a rush to kind of fill the void. Just sit there and allow it to settle. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but having interviewed plenty of criminals in the police, I also did some time out in Iraq with the military and the interrogation and debriefing. And silence was probably one of the most powerful techniques we used. People think interrogation's all really harsh tactics, but actually open searching questions, empathy and silence were equally, if not more effective.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. Hey, I want to give you a chance to let people know either how to get a hold of you. First of all, you've got 2 wonderful books behind you that, as you mentioned, are bestsellers. Order Out of Chaos, and is it Eye of the Storm is the other book?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So folks can find you. How could people that are listening that go, wow, I would love this guy to talk to my team or me or my leadership or whatever. How do people reach out to you or get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can get the main website, Red Center Global, and that's the British spelling of center, RE, redcenterglobal.com. And they can sign up to a newsletter, and they get all kind of insights and further articles and frameworks on that. They can get the books from Amazon, Order Out of Chaos and Eye of the Storm, and I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And whichever way people reach out to me, it's just having a conversation. Yeah. It's like, okay, what negotiation challenge are you dealing with? Do you have problems with? Are you looking to overcome for you or your team? And then it's simply, we work out the best plan for you. What is that? Is that me coming in and giving a keynote talk? Or is it actually just working one-on-one with people? But either way, it's always about finding the best way to support you and your team, really.
Yeah, man, I cannot thank you enough for your time and your wisdom and all the great stuff you've done. I'm sure there's families out there that are just like, thank God this man exists and I live a better life now because you were able to fix some stuff and then now translate those skills for folks to kind of pick them up and in whatever life they live. Not everyone's a hostage negotiator, but everyone can sort of take some of these pearls and nuggets and make themselves better at whatever they do on a daily basis.
Indeed. And hey, life is one big negotiation.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much, Scott Walker, ladies and gentlemen. That's all the time we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors, Rula, Excel Health, TrueHue, Montage Insurance Solutions. Blessed to be here. These guys are keeping the lights on for us. Thank you guys for watching. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.